On Tech News Today, Microsoft is working on a wearable computer that lives in your ear. Plus, Google turns VR on YouTube up to 11, and a new quadcopter gives you a drone's eye view through virtual reality goggles. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, November 5th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Prosper. Prosper is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace that connects people who are looking to borrow money with those who have money to lend. Visit prosper.com/ENT to apply for a loan now. And by Gazelle, the online marketplace for buying and selling used gadgets. Shop from a variety of certified pre-owned electronics or trade one in for cash. Give a new life to a used device. Visit Gazelle.com today. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgan. Our co-anchor today is Fusion editor Kashmir Hill. How you doing, Kashmir?
I am good, Mike.
I'm so glad you're here because, you know, in the future, people are going to do a better job of predicting the future. That's my prediction about the future. We've seen all the classic 20th century predictions of the future. Nuclear-powered flying cars, food made out of pill form, cities covered by glass domes, all that kind of stuff. It never happened. Hardly any of it happened. And you did a really interesting post that had a accompanied video about predicting the future. But why do you think that people have such a hard time predicting the future?
I think it's hard to determine which signals are the signals that matter. I think a lot of people had a sense that in the future we'd talk to people by video and be really obsessed with computers, but it was hard to know this would mean that we would all walk around with smartphones and just be staring down all the time on public transportation, on streets, distracted so that we get into car accidents. I just think in the present moment, it's hard to predict forward that we'll do things that are bad for us. Yeah,
it's true. And, I think that the larger issue is the failure to take into account human nature generally. Ironically, it's because we have a cognitive bias about whatever our concerns are now are going to be the concerns in the future. For example, all the food predictions from the mid-20th century about food in pill form, food made out of sawdust, food, all this food stuff was based on the idea that food is just a big hassle and it's just, you want to just get it over with. That's kind of the assumption behind Soylent, which is a current product, and it's exactly why Soylent will absolutely fail. All these things fail because, back to human nature, people enjoy eating food. And
right, we like things that taste good.
We do, and it turns out we even enjoy making it. If we don't have, if you look at the housing, the track housing from that era, you see the kitchens were designed with this sort of get it over with kind of utilitarian attitude. And now when people build a new house, the kitchen is a place where people gather. It's got a big, thing in the middle. It's got a nice, it's a place where you want to spend time and enjoy preparing food. And again, that wasn't predicted. The other cognitive bias I think that people fall into or express in their predictions is the idea that people assume that in the future we'll be more organized and more centralized than we were when we are present, whenever that present is. And it's always the opposite of that. There's a sort of cultural entropy that occurs where the options are, explode in number. If you look at the options back to food, the number of types of food that are available in the supermarket is, 1,000 times more products available. If you look at, the idea that, if you look at Epcot Center, which was supposed to be a model city of the future, that was its original intention. The plans for Epcot died with Walt Disney in the 60s, but his plans were to build this whole model city, and the whole thing was going to be designed centrally, and people are going to probably wear quasi-futuristic uniforms, and everybody would use the one form of transportation and go to the one office building and go shopping in the one shopping area. And in fact, it goes in the other direction. People our clothing has gone into many different directions. People dress like all kinds of different things, and I think that if you contrast the economic and sort of distribution of goods and services, I think the real future looks more like San Francisco, where you have the sharing economy and the on-demand economy, where people are as contractors or independent contractors or freelancers, providing flexible services and flexible schedules on an ad hoc basis on demand. That's the opposite of like everybody will work in the one factory. So anyway, that's just my thought on prepared, on the future and predicting and how hard it is to do.
And I do love that William Gibson quote about the future is here, it's just unevenly distributed.
And that is absolutely
I do
true.
think we all live in different versions of the future, and that will certainly continue on.
Absolutely. The one edit that I would have for William Gibson's observation is that, yes, the future that will be is already here, not evenly distributed, but there are also many other futures currently with us that will not be, and that's the trick, is deciding, choosing, predicting which of the current futures will turn out to be the actual futures. Jason, why don't we roll that video? You had a really cool video that looked at the future of the past. And let's take a look at
past futures.
Exactly. Let's take a look at this video. In the year 2000.
Robots are coming, not to rule the world, but to help around the house. In the home
I like
of
that they're called
2001,
robots.
machines
Yeah,
like
robots.
these, they help cook your breakfast and serve it too.
It looks like a big hassle just to put the egg into the claw of that machine.
This was supposed to be our kitchen in 2001 from this 1960s video.
Yeah, that's way better.
Everything's probably going to be computerized.
Computer camper?
So you're going to have to know how to use computers.
You're going to have to know how to use computers, folks. Back then, using a computer was turning a knob and stuff. What the?
I don't know what era we're in here now. This might be the 80s.
Man, I'm so glad the
Oh, this is my
predictions were
favorite.
wrong.
This is Skype.
The public wants. There are some interesting possibilities. Video phone.
The hairstyles have
And I venture
not
to say
changed
that it
much
will
since
present you
1962.
young people with some fascinating human.
Oh, come on, he's right there. He's in the other room.
He's on the other side of the wall.
Oh, no, Sid,
Yeah.
don't compute now.
I can do it. It'll be okay.
Sid, give me that floppy disk. You're too drunk to compute now.
Compute.
We can now get light from a thin sheet of steel.
Get your hands off my
simply by
floppy disk.
applying light-giving phosphors to
Wow.
the surface. Luminescent walls and ceilings are on the way.
Looks like a person in a box or a computer sitting in there. Just like
Did he say
giving
sitting?
the answers.
Sitting in there.
Today,
Yes.
the dream of a rocket belt is a reality.
It's
The
a
tech-
reality. We all have them.
Yeah, we all have them. Actually, the jetpacks that some people do have and demonstrate are still based on that era. They haven't advanced much.
Yesterday's fiction.
Although next year, a commercially available jetpack will occur, but it's
Seems as
very
if we
different
live
from
in a
that.
world that is
That's from
stranger
2001,
than
isn't it?
science fiction.
Anyway,
Our past futures.
yeah. Anyway, it's fun to look back at all that stuff and realize how lucky we are that it didn't turn out the way that they thought it would. So.
Hey, Mike, maybe we'll be in clips in 50 years.
Yeah, could be. All right, well, let's jump into the news. The wearable.com website is reporting that Microsoft is working on a hearable computing device. That's a wearable computer that sits in your ear. It's currently called Clip, not Clippy, but Clip, and it's basically hardware for accessing Cortana. The site says prototypes might be shown by the end of the year and that product could ship as soon as next year. Most surprisingly, Clip might work with Siri and other virtual assistants. I love this, Kashmir Hill, because I think this is exactly the kind of thing Microsoft ought to be doing.
Giving us a seer Erie.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of doing more computing with voice.
Yes.
I think that will be a nice change of pace from how we're currently interacting with our devices.
Yeah, and everybody I always get into these arguments about, that I always say that the keyboard and the mouse, especially the mouse, is going away fast, and we won't need the keyboard so much. And I get a lot of pushback from almost everybody, but I think that voice will replace a lot of the typing we currently do. We just talk. As soon as that works, people are just going to talk because that's a natural human behavior to just speak. And so I think that's a kind of a sure thing. But what I love about this is that I think that everybody who has a virtual assistant, and I'm talking about Microsoft, of course, Apple, Google, should do what Amazon is doing and give us appliances that are optimized for that virtual assistant. Enough hiding it in the browser and on the phones and stuff. Give us something like the Amazon Echo. Give us something like an earpiece like we're describing here that's optimized for that virtual assistant, because I think that's really what I want, which is be able to just talk without launching an app or without going to a site or without pushing a button or anything. I just want to talk and have my virtual assistant hear me and give me what I'm looking for. And that's what I do with the Amazon Echo. And I think most people who do use the Amazon Echo understand intuitively how powerful that is, that you can just talk and get the information you're looking for.
So you want better robot slaves than you currently have?
I do. I want robot slaves that require even less effort than going, because that's too much.
Of course, since I write about privacy all the time, that does mean living in a world where everything is listening to you all the time, waiting for you to tell it to do something. But that means they hear every other conversation too. Oh,
not only do they hear it, they record it. And in Google's case, they will actually play back the recordings that they have of your voice when you use Google now. But they all record it, especially Amazon. So yes, you are right. But for those of you out there who say that we don't need that level of convenience, I say to you, we don't need any of this stuff. None of it. We don't need drones. I'm sorry, Padre. We don't need drones. We don't need smartphones. It's all stuff that makes us feel good and makes us feel happy. And I think that these virtual assistant appliances that I'm talking about will be powerful, not because we need them, but because they give us a bit of a thrill when we use them. And I think that's what all this stuff is about. So more news coming up, including more exciting Facebook news. But first, I want to talk about Prosper. If you're watching the show, that means you are a bit of a geek like me, and you like technology. You think that technology might make things better, make our lives better. I certainly believe that. And one of the ways that it makes our lives better is in borrowing money. Prosper, of course, invented the category of peer-to-peer lending. It's the Silicon Valley way to do lending and borrow money. It's like the Uber or the Airbnb of borrowing money. You can borrow up to $35,000 in as few as 5 days. And what I love about this site is that the whole loan process is very, very straightforward. It's so much better than any other way to borrow money. Just go to the site, put in the amount you'd like to borrow, the purpose of your loan, give an indication of your credit score, and they'll give you the rate right there. That's the rate. If your credit score is in fact what you say it is, that is the rate. And that rate is constant. There are no hidden fees, no weird gotchas that come later on. Totally straightforward. Then your loan is essentially put on the site, and investors can come along, anyone really can come along and invest in these loans, and you can get the money in as few as 5 days, and then you just pay it off monthly. There's no penalty for paying off early. It's just so much better, so much more straightforward, so much less BS about that you get with financial institutions, including banks. It's a better way to get the cash you need at a low interest rate. And to check it, like I said, just go to the site, go to prosper.com/TNT, and you can check it instantly, and that does not affect your credit score in any way. For up to $35,000 in your account in as few as 5 days, go to prosper.com/TNT. That's prosper.com/TNT. It's a new way to borrow money, folks. You got to check it out. All right, well, let's go to our next story. Facebook yesterday reported both earnings and a smattering of stunning facts about the company's enormous growth and usage. Miriam Gottfried is a reporter with the Wall Street Journal, and specifically, she writes the what is the column you write, Miriam? I'm sorry.
Heard on the street.
Heard on the street.
Heard on the street.
Right. I heard it on the street, but I didn't remember it. So heard on the street. Thank you so much for joining us today, Miriam.
Of course.
All right. Well, first of all, how did Facebook do in the reported quarter, and how is Wall Street reacting to the news?
Wall Street is reacting positively. Facebook reported very impressive revenue growth of 41%. Advertising revenue grew 45%. Mobile advertising revenue grew a whopping 72%. So that's pretty impressive, and that it represented a sequential acceleration over, the last quarter. And, I think a lot of people are chalking it up to Facebook's investment in video ads.
And Miriam, in your report, you focused on the fact that while everything else is growing, profits were not. Does it seem like investors just don't care about profits when it comes to technology companies right now?
Well, I think that's fair to some degree. in many ways, Facebook should be investing in growing for the future. It's valued based on what, people hope it can achieve someday, not based on how big it is today, in terms of profits.
Yes.
That is. But I think what people might not be focusing on as much is, where its spending is going. The reason for its profitability sagging over the past 9 months is that it's been spending a lot on R&D. That's one of the main reasons, at least.
Something like 28% of their revenue, right? I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. And R&D is really important, obviously, for a tech company. You want to be doing that. But, only part of that R&D is going toward its core business, meaning its advertising business, which we know about, where we kind of know when they spend money on that, it works out in terms of revenue growth, like we saw this quarter. A lot of that money is going to other projects that are kind of more of a question mark, in terms of whether they're going to work out. And examples of that could be virtual reality, could be internet.org, which is Facebook's project to bring the internet to underserved areas around the world.
Yeah, and
the problem with that is we just don't know if that spending is going to pay off, in the same way that the other spending does.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the biggest shockers from this, and it's always a shock whenever they roll out these numbers, but they now say that roughly 1 billion people logged on to Facebook every single day in the month of September. That's absolutely stunning. That's 1 in 7 of the humans alive. That includes all, that's 1 out of 7 of every human, including the very old people, including infants, including people who don't have, that is a huge percentage of the human population logging in every day. Now, are we reaching peak Facebook, or will they be able to grow these enormous numbers?
Just because of what you described, we have to be getting close to the peak, right? Maybe we could get to, 2 out of every 7 humans, but we get to certain limitations that prevent Facebook from getting bigger in terms of that metric. Once you get huge, the problem is growing. And Facebook has done a pretty impressive job of doing that, despite being a huge company. But of course, there is a limit.
There's an interesting report in the Wall Street Journal a little earlier this week about how Facebook is getting concerned that people are posting less than they used to. That Facebook users are posting, I think, 20% less this year than they did last year. It seems like we're kind of hitting content fatigue. Do you see any financial concerns or investor concerns around whether people are maybe part of Facebook but not participating in it as much?
Yeah, I think that is a concern. Obviously, Facebook's concerned, which signals that it's important to them. I think the question is, how much people still check Facebook. Maybe, they lurk on Facebook without posting, but will they check it as often if it turns out that not that many of their friends are posting, or if it turns out that, it's just the same people posting over and over? I think engagement is important for Facebook to keep getting, the kind of viewership of its ads that it's getting right now.
Now, of course, Facebook is I'm sorry, go ahead, Miriam.
Oh, no, just that thing that you might have seen at the top of Facebook where they're telling you to share your memories, you might have seen that recently, where it says, oh, you've been friends with so-and-so for 8 years, share your memory. I think that's a way of them getting you to engage and to post more.
Yeah, they're always trying to do that. Now, their revenue is, varies all over the place. Of course, in the U.S. and the U.K., their advertising revenue is very, very high. There are places in the world where it's very, very low. But surprisingly, CEO Mark Zuckerberg said that one of Facebook's largest advertising markets is China, where Facebook is banned. How is that possible?
It's a very good question. I think there could be ways that people are getting around it, maybe through VPNs. I think Chinese consumers are pretty savvy about how to get content maybe now. I don't actually know that much about how that's working. But it could be, that Chinese advertisers are wanting to appeal to the rest of the world too, to users outside of China. In order to promote Chinese companies. because if we're talking about advertising markets, it's not necessarily advertising to Chinese consumers, I guess.
And then Facebook is also very happy about the amount of video and photos that people are watching. I know as for journalism organizations, we've certainly been posting more videos because we know that Facebook likes them. What do you think is the future for how much video and photo viewing is going to be important for Facebook?
I mean, it's obviously very important, and that's why, with those concerns that people are sharing less on Facebook, that ties into that. But I think that the video watching is important from an advertising perspective, obviously, because the idea is that they can get higher revenue from video ads than from non-video ads. But I think that in order for that to really climb a lot further, they need to get their video measurement kind of in line with the way video is measured on other platforms such as TV. If Facebook really wants to capture a share of TV video watching, their video measurement needs to be an apples to apples comparison to video that you might watch on TV, because that's how marketers are going to feel comfortable, paying TV type prices for a Facebook ad. Until then, it's going to be a lower price. And there's been controversy in the past among marketers over how much Facebook, what Facebook counts as a view on video, and they've tweaked that, and I think there's probably more room to go in terms of getting those measurement standards in line with the rest of the industry.
And the video thing is just mind-blowing. 8 billion video views, I should say, daily. I think they measure those with, the cutoff is 3 seconds. If it auto-plays for 3 seconds before you scroll past it, that's a view.
Yeah.
So 8 billion video views daily. 500 million people are watching those 8 billion video views. And if you total up all the time spent on watching videos each day on Facebook, it adds up to 760 years per day. That's astonishing. And so they're really going after YouTube, it seems, here, and that is clearly part of their strategy.
Although there is controversy because YouTube measures its views differently than Facebook.
Yeah.
So you really have to be careful when you're looking at the viewing metrics to make sure you're comparing apples to apples.
And if you're a user, of course, you have to be careful that you don't waste your life viewing videos on Facebook. Just a little advice. Miriam
that's for sure.
Yeah, Miriam Gottfried is at WSJ.com and on Twitter at Miriam Gottfried. Thank you so much for joining us today, Miriam.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye. The Financial Times reported yesterday in an exclusive that Facebook is set to release their Notify news app next week. The paper also reported that Facebook's content partners include Vogue, Mashable, CNN, The Washington Post, CBS, Comedy Central, and Billboard Magazine. Notify is called Notify, presumably because it's meant to be consumed mostly on the notifications lock screen. This is a brilliant move, I think, on Facebook's part, Kashmir, because everybody's trying to get in front of everybody. They tried with a product called Facebook Home. They wanted to be the first thing you see when you turn on your phone. That didn't work out so well. It failed. And so now they're trying to get you hooked on consuming news through Facebook. It is an independent app. It's not part of the Facebook.com, Facebook app. And then they want you to just turn on your screen and boom, you're going to get all this news on the notification screen and also be interrupted with Facebook news. I can't wait to get that breaking Vogue news. How about you?
There is such a desire right now for attention. Like, how do you get eyeballs on your thing? How do you get a person to notice your app, your news, your content first when there are so many different platforms competing for their attention? So interesting to see Facebook launch this. It reminds me a little bit of Twitter Moments in terms of these social media networks really trying to launch a news service. And Moments is always really interesting to me when I check it because it's usually news I'm would not otherwise be interested in. Like it gives me a sense of the kind of societal id, because it's always like sports and celebrity stuff.
I feel exactly the same way. I find Moments just so uncompelling, if uncompelling is a word. I go there and I think, well, maybe they've pulled it together and they've figured out how to do something there that's one story that interests me. Never. Not one story have I ever seen that interests me. It was described to us very differently. It was supposed to be this breaking stuff, real time, information about what's happening right now. And instead, it's just kind of a roundup of yesterday's boring news. So anyway, I hope some. I guess part of the problem is that Kashmir, you and I are up to our eyeballs in news all day. We're always hunting for more news, and I think that by the time the aggregation services get around to aggregating, it's like ancient history to us. And what I'm always looking for is some way to get news right away when it's really breaking. And you can do that to some extent by sort of rolling your own on Twitter over time, by always looking for breaking news sources. That's okay. I use Google Alerts, and that's okay, but I'd really love an app that actually gives me news 3 minutes after it breaks.
Yeah, and what I always wonder about is like, what do we miss when there are all these places that are competing for our attention and, giving us the breaking news as soon as it happens. And some people are really, really effective at getting that news in front of you, and some people aren't. So I just wonder, like, what gets left out in this world of instant notifications and headlines.
Yeah, well, one of the things I suspect with Facebook that will get left out is they're so into algorithmic sorting. Because they want to harvest the signals. They want to give you exactly what you want so they can find out exactly what you want, so they can offer you advertising that sells you exactly what you want. And so I think what you miss out on is the opportunity to be confronted with news you wouldn't go looking for, or that you wouldn't think about in advance, which is one of the things newspapers used to do. You'd go through the paper and you're like, oh, I wasn't really interested in what's happening in Timbuktu, but wow, look, there's an article about some crazy thing that I didn't hear about, and sort of confronts you. And that's sort of we're at risk of losing that. But instead of that, we get just gigabytes of information. So I guess that's something. Well, in product update news, Google today announced 2 new features to enhance Google Cardboard virtual reality on the company's YouTube Android app. First, YouTube is getting support for 3D VR video. The second feature is that the app now lets you watch any YouTube video in Cardboard. You do this by selecting the Cardboard option from the Watch page menu. I don't know about this, Kashmir Hill. The problem with this Watch Any Video thing is that when you use Cardboard, you have to hold it in your hand. So it's kind of an uncomfortable way to pass the hours watching videos. This 3D VR thing, though, is going to be awesome, I suspect.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like, because of this news, I was scrolling through the Google Cardboard options, and they have all of these certified vendors. Mattel makes a plastic one. There's this cool steampunky aluminum one, but they're all these holders that you have to actually hold to your face. I don't know. Maybe they're just like don't want to put a rubber band on it and strap it to our heads.
Yeah, Jason here, the producer of this show, uses duct tape to duct tape the VR because he pretty much lives in VR. I'm probably exaggerating. Maybe.
I just need my Matrix pod and some goo.
Exactly. I just need a thing in the back of my neck, and this is going to feel a little weird. Yeah, someday it's coming. All right, we got some more news coming right up. But first, I want to talk about Gazelle. The holidays are coming, and I want you to do your holiday shopping on Gazelle. It's a great place to buy a great gift at a very low price. And the great thing about Gazelle is they certify all of their pre-owned devices. And they put it through a rigorous test. If you buy from somebody, you don't know where that phone's been, and you don't know what they've done to. They could be unloading something on you. They could be, tricking you. You never know. They could be flipping you. I talked about that a couple of days ago, where there's selling you something that's really a lower value. Gazelle are experts at making sure that a device works perfectly, and then they sell it to you at a price. They're really good at pricing. They sell you at just a really great price. It's just enough of a price to make it worth their while, but it's never going to be outrageously priced. Their prices are really, really good, and that's why it's a great place to do your holiday shopping. If you or the person you buy for isn't completely thrilled with the device for any reason, you can send it back within 30 days. They just refund the money, no questions asked. And so there's literally no risk to buying from Gazelle. Don't go to the mall. It's a terrible place to buy stuff. Buy something really awesome on Gazelle at a very, very low price. Give new life to used electronics, trade in for cash, or buy certified pre-owned. Highly recommended. Visit Gazelle.com today. In news you can lose, a Chinese drone, literally you can lose this. A Chinese drone maker called Ehang has released version 2.0 of their Ghost drone. The $700 drone is different because it ships with dedicated virtual reality goggles. You control it with the Android or iOS app, mostly by tilting the phone. Let's check out their video. So first of all, we see people up on a high cliff using VR. I don't recommend this because you'll walk right off the cliff.
This does seem ill-advised.
Yeah. You can see from the drone, oh, look, I'm walking off the cliff. So the camera is underneath, built-in, mounted inside the drone. And you can just see everything from the drone.
Needs to come with a chair to strap you into.
Yeah. Now, the secret sauce here is how fast they can get the video stream to the VR goggles. And that's why you have those crazy-looking antennas on either side of the VR goggles. But this is really cool. You know, we need a better word than virtual reality, because if you're looking at video, even if it's 3D video through virtual reality goggles, it's not virtual reality. It's video. It's reality. Yeah. So
this is how drone racers do it too. They tend to have these glasses where they're seeing what their drone is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. And I got to get me a drone. I have a little tiny drone and I've just never got around to using it, but that does not have VR goggles or a camera. All right, well, we got some feedback from some TNT fans, including email from Dana Schwartz, who wrote about the fan email yesterday asking who is liable when a self-driving car crashes. Dana writes, in the world of aviation, there's a precedent for the concept of the pilot in command being ultimately responsible for the operation and safety of the plane in flight, whether it's being manually flown or on autopilot, or even if they were not the person actively operating the controls at any moment. Someone is always designated as the PIC, I think that's pilot in command actually, from the moment the aircraft moves under its own power until it comes to rest after landing. I can see the same kind of thing being applied here with a driver in command. Don't use the acronym on that one, folks, of any autonomous vehicle. Current vehicles all have a way to immediately take over control of the car, and that requires paying some attention to the environment around the car and its actions. Thus, a person in the vehicle would be ultimately liable for its operation, as is the actual driver now. I think that's a great point. That's probably a good plan, and that's probably what's going to happen by law. I don't see anytime soon the state of California or the state of any state basically saying, yeah, go ahead and, get drunk in the back seat and take a nap or whatever while your car drives. That's not going to happen. Somebody's going to have to be sitting in the driver's seat, probably ready to take over control of the car should anything happen. So that is probably a good plan.
Just like in elevators.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, yeah.
I mean, elevators used to be manually operated.
They used to have drivers. Somebody had a little hat.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, in fact, the driver in the self-driving car, and what was that movie? I always say True Lies. It wasn't True Lies, right? Total Recall. Total Recall. Had a little elevator hat on. Anyway, all right. We got another email from a TNT fan named Yakov Gordnitsky, who wrote, in your episode on Friday, there's a lot of speculation on what Google or Alphabet plans to do vis-a-vis Chrome OS and Android OS. I assume no tech journalist has ever looked at the Android repository made available by Google. I built my own Android image for the Odroid Exynos board, which is inside my coffee table touchscreen computer. Ooh, little show-offy there. That is awesome. So I went through the torturous process of cross-compiling Android, kernel modules and all that's involved. If you actually look at the repository, you'll see that the KitKat repository is already Chromium-based, and it's called that. You have to get Chromium sources to build Android, so if anything, Google has already merged the two OSs. They just didn't bother to inform the tech press, figuring, let's see how long it'll take the tech journalists to look at the code. Must be years, since KitKat is not exactly new. Well, I talked to Ron Amadio at Ars Technica, who is a journalist who looks at code, and he told me that Chromium did power WebView in KitKat, so Chromium was in the KitKat repository. Chromium merely enabled apps to display content from the web. So Chromium was part of Android, but not based on Android. After KitKat, WebView was moved from the base operating system and made available on the Play Store, so Chromium was removed along with it. So there you have it. And I want to thank both Yakov for bringing that to our attention and Ron for looking at the code and giving us the story on what is happening there. If you'd like to comment on any of our coverage or suggest coverage, send email to tnt@twit.tv. We'd love to hear from you. And our TNT fan of the day today is Eduardo Cascanedo in Houston, Texas, who posted this picture on Twitter. He's watching the show live on an iPad Air 2 with the Twit chat room full screen. Boy, I've never seen this before. The show is this tiny little window, and the chat room is enormous. But, you know.
The important part is enormous.
Exactly. Well, that's great. I mean, I love to see people interacting in the chat room like that. So very, very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Use How I Watch TNT even if you just listen. Kashmir Hill, what are you working on these days? I know that I always love to hear about your future projects because you always deliver these crazy things. What are you doing?
Right now, I'm just obsessed with our Real Future Fair, which is happening tomorrow and Saturday in San Francisco. So it's kind of been eating up all my time. And I'm doing 2 panels, one on the future of law, which is going to be these cases from basically 2025 that I have legal experts opining on. So predicting the future of litigation. And then I'm doing a panel on the future of privacy, where I'm going to have Cindy Cohn, the director of EFF, and Ross McNutt, which is like just one of my favorite names, who runs persistent surveillance systems, where he flies planes over cities and basically photographs them for days and weeks at a time in order to track crime. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, for your future of privacy panel, don't get former Sun CEO Scott McNeely, because it'll be over in 2 seconds. You have zero privacy. Get over it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Privacy's dead. Yep, it's gone. We buried it. R.I.P.
Exactly. Well, Kashmir Hill, thank you so much for calling in today. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, bye-bye. Let us know what's on your mind. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW. That's 260-868-7469. You can subscribe to Tech News Today by going to twit.tv/app and choosing a Twit app for your browser, your mobile device, or your TV. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC at twit.tv/live. If you'd like to help us grow our audience, here's how you can do it. Just post a link to twit.tv/TNT on the social media site of your choice, tag 3 friends, and recommend that they subscribe. You can subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. You can follow me on Google Plus by pointing your browser at plus.google.com/+MikeElgan. Also, don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. The show is produced by Jason Cleanthus and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.